Hello everyone, it's Michelle Patterson here with Angel Souls, and this is our weekly angelic message for the week beginning May 13th, 2019. As of the recording of this video, we have had yet another school shooting. So for this week, I decided to pose a question, which is something that you can do when you're auto writing. And auto writing is a very effective tool for spiritual growth as well as opening your creativity. I hope to be doing some more work to explain that. So there are different approaches, and this week, normally I just allow them to, the angels to come through and just tell us whatever it is that they want us to know. But this week I asked the question, basically, why does this stuff happen? And that's what we're going to get into, okay? So to begin, I asked, angels of God's purest light, what can we do to prevent or help what is happening in the world? The response, because they want you to be very specific. Do you ask us of recent events, the schools and the children? My answer, yes. And then they begin. There is a malfunctioning of sorts of the intellect holding much power. Individuals begin to think far too much on that space as reality, meaning our 3D reality, and thus forget their consciousness. And then the soul becomes absent and chaos runs the form, runs the body. So the body becomes overwhelmed by chaos. And basically, I want to say, I think what they're saying is that your body or the person's body sort of short circuits, okay? And we know this when we deny our consciousness, when we deny our soul, people become empty vessels, okay? And this is where we see, people doing crazy things, and there's no awareness there, right? Okay. So let me read that again. And then the soul becomes absent and chaos runs the form. There is no conscience and there is a moment of insanity. And then one hurts another. Despite the anger, it is in your best interest to work on yourselves. Be mindful of what you pass along to your children. Be mindful of these pressures. Assure them in strength, but do not teach them entitlement. So we don't want to teach them that everyone has to cater to them. We also don't want them thinking the world is a dangerous place, but how we can develop our own energy, be tapped into our own consciousness. We can be a beacon of light. I think a lot of people come to the spiritual community because they have experienced tragedy, and maybe other forms of healing have just not worked for them. I think that's initially what gets them here. Then when they're facing, the depth of healing and acknowledgement and all the work that you have to do, it can be unpleasant. And that's, something I always speak out against is, that spiritual sidestepping or using spirituality to just hide from your problems instead of using it for what it really is, which is a calling to come on back into your consciousness, okay? I think a lot of times we humans, we won't go on that tough journey unless we are sort of shoved into it, okay? So I felt the need to bring that up here as well. So when we're passing that along to children, it's not so that we could put them up on a pedestal and say, you're our future. We hear people say this all the time. Oh, the indigos came to save us. That's not fair. And what we ended up having was a bunch of kids who are cracking under the pressure of thinking that it's on their shoulders to save the world. We all have a part, and we can all work on ourselves, and we can be there for one another, okay? But we can't keep playing around with spirituality as a means to feed our ego or to feel like we are more special than anybody else or to hide from our problems. And we definitely can't be teaching our children, and whether you're a parent or not, every child that's on this planet, we have a responsibility to be good examples for them, okay? Now, there's also a message here about helping children process, okay? But if you haven't worked on yourself, you're not going to be able to be a good example to the child on how to process a moment like this. There's not a good explanation. They're helping us understand energetically what happens, okay? And maybe that's not something that you want to pass along to your kids. I mean, you decide. But really, I think the message here is to don't blame. Don't keep looking at, oh, the world is such a dangerous place, or, oh my gosh, we need, this, that, and the other to be implemented in our laws. That's not enough, okay? It's not enough. We are much more complex spiritual beings than any law could dictate except God's law, right? So we have to be working on our consciousness and being that example for children around us, okay? So they go on to say, love those who have experienced tragedy in order to teach all. So we need to honor those souls that have agreed to come in and be a part of this. Now, I know people are going to argue against that. I'm not here for that. I'm not interested in a debate or an argument. I'm just giving you a message. You take it for what it's worth. If you agree or don't agree, that's okay. But often people, they're sort of like the spirit, spirit heroes, if you want to see it that way, where they're going off and experiencing all of this, and then we're witnessing. And it's through, they're closest to the contrast. But there's almost like a sacrifice going on there to spark some realization in us. So we should love those souls and we should honor them. All right. Again, people are going to debate this. I'm not here for that. I will put no energy into it. All right. They just go on to say, love to each heart, and we carry your requests up. Call upon us without delay, God's angels in the purest. So, again, we should probably talk about codependency with the angels. Remember, the angels are not here to save you per se. And again, people get very uptight about that. Angels are here to guide. They cannot interfere with your free will unless there is some, major emergency or something like that. They can come in and help you, okay? And they can help you to turn a different direction if you're about to head down a dangerous road. But if you're not willing to listen, and this is something that you really need to hang on to what I'm saying here, if you're not willing to listen, or if you think that the angels are just going to come in and fix everything for you, you will continue to suffer. If you are somebody who still hangs on to some of the very dated teachings about spirituality, where you're supposed to be denying your human self, where you're supposed to tune out and, turn away from everything that's going on around you, then people, the experiencers, the people that have come in, the people who have come in to have these experiences to teach us something, Jesus did it, to teach us something, to get us through that contrast back into our consciousness. If you turn away from that because you're too sensitive, that's an ego pursuit. That's you saying, I'm more special, I'm gentle, I'm so fragile, I can't handle all of that stuff. It is no longer the time for that. And that's all I'm going to say about it. Let's get onto the cards. Okay, so for this week, I'm going to be using the Magdalene Oracle by Tony Carmine Salerno, and of course pulling a color card from the the color therapy deck. All that information will be down below. So let's see what we have going on here. Okay, so that should do it. Let's see what we have here. First card out is, okay, so this is Sacred Sexuality. These cards, before I hold it up, they can get a little saucy. Okay, the artwork can get a little saucy. So if you have the little ones watching, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm going to hold it up now. Okay, so here we go. Sacred Sexuality. Now, why would this card be coming out right now? This is having a lot to do with our base nature, having a lot to do with the emotional body, the sacral chakra, our center of creativity. Now, you could take this very literally and see it as a call for you to heal. They're coming in. I was going to say you could take it to heal the sacral chakra. It's about intimacy, okay? Everyone being so afraid to be exposed, to be vulnerable, okay? To be open to criticism. And they're wanting us to really contemplate the nature of vulnerability. So why don't we put that on the table as a journaling topic for this week? Report back. Let me know in the comments down below what that journaling exercise does for you. But what is the nature of vulnerability, and why are we so afraid of it? Is it because other humans can be very, very cruel and want to jump on someone else's vulnerability or to take advantage, right? And this keeps us from being authentic with one another, and might in some cases even have you isolating, okay, or pulling back. And they're coming here and saying that, we want you all to start healing this intimacy issue. Yeah, it goes deep, because this is a message about, just as an example, look at how people get into romantic partnerships. How many times is it actually about love? Not often. Look around. Not often. It's usually about social conditioning. I'm a certain age, I have to hurry up and get married. Or I can't be alone. That's a big one. Journal about that if you have problems being alone. Or kind of like this feeling of, I don't know who I am unless someone is defining me. I don't have an identity unless I have someone next to me. And then what? Then people just partner up with someone that perhaps they know will be temporary, or I know I have a history of doing that, right? Like not wanting to be, in my case, I didn't want to be defined by somebody else. So the second it started to get deep and we started kind of becoming entwined, that's where I have my little freak out moment. I'm not going to lie. Okay, maybe I need to journal about that myself this week. I have my little freak out and I pull back. So the message here with this card, this Sacred Sexuality card, is to look at how we interact with one another and why we might have fears to be seen, to authentically be seen. Okay, is there shame there? What are we afraid of? All those kinds of things. Okay, so the next card we have is Illumination. How interesting. So through this activity, we're going to understand our true nature, what we're truly capable of doing, and what it can feel like when we meet another person and it feels as if we're coming home. Now, again, you guys know where I stand on the whole soulmate twin flame thing. I have very strong opinions about that. And this shouldn't be about desperately seeking your other half. Again, you can argue all you want in the comments. I will not engage. I don't have time for it. But if you're somebody who you're listening to that stuff and there's this idea being put into you that you're not complete unless you have someone and you're constantly seeking, guess what? There's an air of desperation behind that. You're pushing away what might actually be good for you. But when we're talking about this, right? And you're healing that and you're being illuminated about what some of your fears are, now you can work on it. Now you can get into that consciousness where the fear doesn't have room. It doesn't have food. It doesn't have air. It doesn't have any energy to feed it. And now you're just being you. And now there's room for connection, whether it's, an actual intimate relationship or good friendships. Healthy friendships, not desperate ones, okay? That's the other thing too. People will get into friendships just so they don't have to eat alone, or just because they don't want to go to the movies alone. Are you kidding me? Like, you do you, but there's some processing that needs to happen here. All right, then we have Gaia. This is interesting. So getting back in touch with, I want to say the heart of what we're created from. Does that make sense? So we come from the earth. We will return. Our physical forms will return to the earth. And so this feels like a lot of peace to be had by getting back to your roots. And I don't mean roots of like, I'm team this, and so that separates me from you. It's not about that. It's about connecting and being at peace and being grounded and allowing yourself to be restored by the energy of Gaia. And of course, in turn, giving that energy back to her. If you see, we all think of Gaia as being feminine. Again, lots of different people are watching this. However you interpret that energy, giving some love back to the earth as well, okay? The final card before we get on to the color card is the Matrix. Okay, interesting. As we all know, oh gosh, I almost want to say, it's so funny that this card is in here, but I almost want to say plugging into a different kind of reality. But really what I want to say when this card comes up is it reminds me that we are in a story. And as I've always said, people interpret this as past lives. I actually see it as continuums. So timeline continuums kind of rotating around one another. If they intersect, then you have maybe that moment of deja vu of that seems familiar. Or if something is kind of short-circuiting in another timeline, you might feel it. Whatever, that's just how I how I interpret it. But when we're talking about that card in the context of everything else that we're talking about, we're plugging too much into something and feeding something that is only going to make us suffer. We're forgetting ourselves. Yes, and that's where that consciousness work comes into play. Let's get the color card here. Let's see what else we have. Okay, maybe one more shuffle. One more. Here we go. Our color card. Oop, oh, no, we got two of them. Okay, two of them came right out. So the first one I see, they came out just like this in my hand. So the first one is that black card, Find Richness from the Dark of Night. The number is 28. So there's that. But then look what's right behind it. Look what we're falling into. Waterfall, get it? We're falling right into brilliance. And this card says, discover your sparkle. The number is 26. Isn't this fascinating? This is what we're living in. This is what we think is real. And this is what you are at a soul level. You are brilliant, okay? Yes, this is teaching us how to be resilient. Some people say that this is more about becoming complacent and getting too used to things like what's in the news this week. So give yourself a chance to experience this. Okay, this is what we are working towards. And this is an emotional cleansing. Okay, find richness from the dark of night. This doesn't have to be our reality. It can be this. Now that doesn't mean, again, magical thinking, we're going to Pollyanna out of this and, you know, we're just going to say love and prayers and everything's going to be okay. Let's not diminish the power of prayer, of course. But this is about a shift. It's about turning. It's about taking a pivot and allowing some different kind of reality to come on forward. Okay? So we're going to leave it there, guys. I'm sending you so much love and take care.